you need to generate interest in what you're doing. Then once people are interested in you, then you need to connect with them. So you need a way for them to enter into some sort of database where you can stay connected with them. Then once you have that connection and the database be organized in a way that you can then nurture that relationship.
The Apartment Gurus podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group, an apartment acquisitions and holdings firm co-founded by Carl York and Tate Siemer, host of this show. We offer you the opportunity to be an owner of cash-flowing, wealth-growing apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. These assets are recession-resistant, risk-mitigated, offer significant tax advantages, and are a great alternative to the stock market. Ready to check it out? Go to www.investwithgreenlight.com today to book a personal consultation with Carl or Tate. Again, that's investwithgreenlight.com. We look forward to meeting you. Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of the Apartment Gurus coming to you remote from the Pacific coast of Mexico, my new headquarters, at least for the next year or so. Covered this maybe 2 episodes ago in a solo episode, telling you guys all about this transition. And this is going to be a really cool episode, guys, because we're really kind of going back to some roots here. We're 3.5 years into this podcast, about 250 episodes, and you guys have been amazing listeners and like very loyal. And I think you maybe have noticed a little bit of a transition recently in kind of following my own interests and what I think is important in the business world and the tech world. And specifically in terms of mindset, personal development stuff, kind of higher level entrepreneurial concepts. And we still have a strong, heavy focus on multifamily and apartment investing. And certainly I still have, in a Greenlight Equity Group, we're full speed ahead and acquisition mode, and every bit as committed and excited about all that as we've ever been, if not more so. But, the podcast largely has been always about kind of just like producing what I think is most valuable, which is ultimately what I'm most interested in. And so as that's evolved and changed over the last 3 years, there's been an evolution and change in terms of some of the messaging and focusing. And that said, I think this is a podcast that has attracted certainly a lot of operators, syndicators, startup people that are starting up in the commercial investment space, and also some limited partners, if you will, or passive investors, people that are into the industry, want to learn as much as they can. I will say that being an operator, an owner operator of Greenlight Equity Group, we now have 10 properties, and mostly in Columbus, Ohio. I've presented what we've presented from that perspective, and because I think that's the most value I can bring. So a lot of this has been operator focused, if you will, operator centric, and that's great, and hopefully highly valuable to all of you guys and gals. And so that said, I think this episode is going to be really almost kind of returning to some roots and some kind of original content, focus, if you will, from the early days. And I'm really excited about it. We're going to get into some great stuff here. I'm joined today by Matthew Elmer, who Matthew, you and I met almost exactly a year ago. It feels like during the Best Ever conference through a really cool story that just kind of really random way of meeting and connecting and just having a conversation right the minute we met about our businesses and what we're up to and some needs that I saw inside of our business, especially the mastermind and coaching business that I have been in and, really engaged in facilitating, growing. And kind of one thing's led to another. And at this point, Matthew, I consider you a really close friend, somebody that I can talk to about just about everything and anything. And, some of the cool stuff we've gotten into recently around specifically ChatGPT, AI, the way that there's just this collaborative aspect to our friendship. But, we'll block out 2-3 hours on a Saturday or Friday and spend an hour on spirituality or, philosophy or whatever. And I love that. I love that we can kind of hit all that stuff. So first of all, Matthew, just really, really grateful for you to be here on the show. We're grateful for our friendship, our partnership, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So welcome, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man. Glad to have you. Glad we met in the random way we did. And your friendship's been really valuable to me and both from a business perspective, but as well as just a personal perspective. And so I'm excited to get a chance to be on the podcast and share a little bit of some of the things we've been working on behind the scenes. Yeah.
And just to kind of go straight to kind of the high level stuff that I think we have to offer here. Matthew has a background in real estate investing himself, and also the development of real estate investment educational resources, and developed a very successful platform and set of products and educational, resource, I guess is the best way to say it. Was that 6-8 years ago now? Something like that?
Yeah, we started the company in 2011. We hit Inc. 5000 in 2017, and the education number 11 fastest growing education company in the country, and number 600 overall on the Inc. 5000 list for delivering, education. So,
dude, I knew it was successful. I didn't know all that stuff. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. So, and it was. To me, it was really about helping people become entrepreneurs using the vehicle of real estate.
Yes.
And so I think that's where we align so much, though. Yeah. The specifics of the real estate is different from your commercial world versus my residential world. A lot of the alignments and the business mindset are just super aligned. So
yeah. They're just that common foundation that the real estate background you have. And the importance on the entrepreneurial piece and the mindset piece. I think there's so much that aligned right out of the gate with us. And then really like the kind of some specific needs that I had really almost immediately in terms of developing resources for my coaching clients and my mastermind clients. You just kind of lined up perfectly. And it's one of those things, not to get too woo woo. I'll just say, like, I think the more you align with who you are and what you're about and what value you really want to create in the world, like the more kind of cool, almost, mysterious, sometimes serendipities, synchronicities, whatever can show up. And that's been happening a lot in my world recently. And, Matthew's one of the biggest examples of that, that's made a big difference for me. And I think what we've been working on together, which we're going to talk about here shortly, will be a big difference maker for our inner circle, our mastermind, and then the industry at large. So yeah, Matthew, again, like super stoked, dude. I'm really glad you're here, and thanks for all the value you brought my inner circle, my clients, and my business. So good stuff.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that today, whether someone's listening as an active multifamily syndicator, I think that they're going to be able to get out of this a really powerful understanding of the system that they should build or should complete if they've started building, that's going to attract the money that they want. And if they're a passive investor, I think we're going to give them some insights to what they ought to be looking for in the active investors that they're working with.
Yeah, perfectly said. So just to kind of zoom out for a second, and I mentioned kind of going back to the roots, and I guess probably there's some clarity for me here today that wasn't there certainly 3.5 years ago when I started this thing. And maybe even some clarity now that wasn't even in place, say 6-8 months ago. And I think the best way to put it all in a simple way is there is is a requirement if you're going to do this business as an operator, especially as a syndicator, as a, an acquisitions firm and an operations firm. There is a requirement for you to be all in 100% and willing to invest what it takes to build your business, build your brand, build your systems and processes, and do so in a way that has automation, reliability, usability by both yourself, your team, and also your investors, and then and does so with an incredible amount of let's say integrity, but in terms, and I'm using integrity in terms of like workability, right? Like not moral right or wrong, but like for me, like if a bridge has integrity, it just works, right? It's like, it is what it is. It's not right or wrong. It has integrity and it supports itself and it does its job. And that's the way your business needs to be too. And so like, not to get too raw here, I guess, but like there is a difference. And you guys have probably all heard of this. It's like, there's a distinct difference between being curious about a business or an opportunity and being committed to it. Right. And so, and neither is right or wrong, but to me, there's a requirement of commitment at an extremely like almost unconditional level to doing what it takes to build your entire ecosphere, if you will, in such a way that is called for by the fact that if nothing else, as a syndicator, you are essentially utilizing and investing and being a steward of your passive investors, sometimes hundreds of thousands, sometimes more, millions of dollars, which can be their life savings, right? Or a significant chunk of it. And so the level of like care and the level of like investment, the level of like going to all lengths to make sure that you're doing all of that with everything that's needed to serve that sacred trust, if you will, that they've put in you by deploying their funds with you. It's not a light matter, and it's not something to be overlooked in any way. And to me, I think Matthew and you and I agree on this. Like the mindset piece is first, right? Like if there has to be an inner alignment and an excitement, if you will, but also just a sense of like, I'm all in on this. There's no conflict in my core values here. There's no hangups for me at any significant level in any part of this. And you may not know, in fact, you won't know at the beginning everything that this takes, but there has to be the willingness and the excitement about doing whatever it takes at every point in the process as it comes up. And so again, like I don't think it can be overstated, right? Like there's probably, in reality, there's people listening to this podcast that are at different points. Like there's people that are all in, very committed. They've done the work around themselves as entrepreneurs to get into a place of alignment with this industry. And then there's some that are maybe looking at it, considering it. And that's curiosity. And that's great. Like that, I know all of us were there at one point, and there's, again, nothing right or wrong in either of these. But I would just say that until you feel that sense of like all in and that sense of willingness to just give it everything you got at all levels, to build what's necessary to honor the trust that has been put in you, you're just not ready, and that's fine. But don't just be very careful about proceeding from that point. And I would even encourage you to just kind of keep going in your process and seek out the podcasts and the coaches and the mentors and the influencers that will get you to a place, whether it's inside of this industry or somewhere else, that you do feel that sense of like, I'm all in. And I'll temper that with saying, I'm pretty sure it was Bill Gates. I keep saying it was Bill Gates, so I hope it was Bill Gates that said, an entrepreneur has to be ready to make a decision with 70% of the required information. Right. So, what I hear there is not just a decision, but like a full on commitment that just like your complete immersion and almost a sense of like burning the ships on the beach sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that you can somehow get to 100% certainty before making that decision, to me, is not realistic. So I love that quote. Entrepreneurship in general is not for everyone. Certainly multifamily is not for everyone. And that might not even seem reasonable to you to make a huge decision with 70% of the required information. And that's okay. It's not maybe in the cards right now for you. So, Matthew, anything on any of that before we kind of move past that?
Yeah, man. Well, two stories, like just real quick. I remember, I took a sales job and went 6 months, made no money. But I was committed. And then my wife showed up and said she was pregnant. And I realized I'd just been curious about this sales job, not committed. And there was something about the moment that it became a commitment that things changed. And I made as much money in the next 6 months that I made in a whole year at the previous job. Similar thing happened in real estate when I got going. I was doing, 6 to 12 deals a year. I thought I really had it figured out, but I hadn't paused to look at that I was working. And a buddy of mine who I had originally been mentoring, and then he started doing a few deals, and then he came to me and he was doing 15 deals, and he came to me and was doing 60 deals. And I was like, how are you doing 60 deals? And he's like, well, I use this system. And I was like, wait, a system's helping you do this? And it was like, I had the mindset, and I had the effort and the commitment, but I didn't have the system. And so for me, I couldn't get to the level he was at. And then once I did that, I got to like 31 deals at a time that I was working. And that's residential, not multifamily. But it just showed me the importance of taking that commitment and turning it into finding whatever it takes and investing the money, the time, and energy to learn that tool, to learn how to use those things. And then when I did, it made the level of ability to get to, at that point, I was doing like 100 to 150 a year. And then I was able to get to over $500,000 a year. And so that those progressions started to become possible because when I was willing to say, oh, I'm missing something here, and I'm willing to go and make that investment of time and money to get there.
Yeah. And that leads perfectly to kind of the next point for me, which is, let's just look at single family versus multifamily for a second. And you and I both have, like, I spent 8 years, actually more like 10 years. If I add 06 through 08 in there in single family, I was a realtor. I know the game pretty well. And it's just a very different prospect, right? You're using, and if you're flipping, you're essentially using a lot of hard money, if you will. You're generally using loan product, or in the case of hard money, it's private money to a certain degree, but they have the same rights as banks as far as foreclosure. They're secure. And most of the time, at least for us, we were just essentially filling in the gaps with our own capital. We didn't have same with you, Matthew. Like, we didn't know in some of that. And we didn't even, it didn't really hit our radar to bring in outside like private investors into that model. So, which, is a different conversation because it kept us from scaling and being good at that industry at any sort of significant level. But you contrast, let's just zoom in on like the capital stack, right? Either hard money or some sort of loan product, and generally your own money, maybe one investor or something like that from the outside, versus a syndication model, right? Where you're using a loan product, usually a bank product or an agency product, or there's other life insurance. There's other loan products out there, but nonetheless, it's debt. It's first position. It's secured. And then you've got, let's say, so an agency loan, Freddie or Fannie, it's going to be these days about 70% at the most of your capital stack. So then there's the other 30% of the capital stack that you got to cover, and you got to like figure it out. And there's often a CapEx budget on top of that needs to be covered. A bridge loan can cover that part of that. And that's, it's just a different product, but let's just stay with the simplicity of an agency acquisition. So you're talking about, say, 30% and then, a CapEx budget. So let's start with, like, just for simplicity, let's say $6 million acquisition, right? So 70% of that, I should have picked I'll pick a round number. Let's say $10 million acquisition. You guys can extrapolate, but you got basically a 70% loan on a $10 million acquisition, obviously $7 million in loan products. So you've got a $3 million, what we call an equity requirement or a capital raise. And then let's just say for this sake, we're not raising a whole lot, if any, capital expenditure improvement money. There's going to be some soft costs, and maybe there's some reserves that you're raising, but we'll just keep it simple and say there's basically a $3 million equity requirement to close the loan and to acquire the property. So that $3 million, you are, as a syndicator, you're setting your business up to bring in private investors, passive investors, right? That are often investing $50,000, $100,000, maybe $250,000 at the most in a syndication, which is an assembly of capital. And then you're putting that $3 million piece together with all those little pieces, and those become your limited partners, your LPs. They have actually a very good position in the deal. They have a great ownership stake. They get a preferred return, meaning they get an ongoing payment, ideally if the property is performing right, of 6, 7, 8%, let's say, every month or every quarter usually is how we do it. And so it's a really great position to be in. They don't have anything else to do other than show up, deploy the money, boom, they're in. That's it. So you collect the check. So, but consider that $3 million, right? And maybe there's, again, for the sake of the conversation, there's 15, 20 limited partners in your deal, right? So that's $3 million of people's hard-earned money that is in probably most cases in those situations, very, very important to them. And sometimes it's part of their life savings, right? And it's part of their retirement and that sort of thing. That level of, like, just for lack of a better term, the responsibility that comes with setting that model up, building that company and your systems that support that those investors and that investment and that acquisition is just next level compared to like the single family comparison that we used. And so again, that whole aspect of like, if your heart's not in it or for any reason, like there's nothing wrong with you, but like you likely aren't in a place that you should responsibly look at engaging in this business without a willingness to, again, like Matthew said, and I said, do whatever it takes. So what does it take, right? Like that kind of begs the question. I'd say there's two things broadly. Number one, it takes, and both of these are investments, right? Like in investments of time and energy, but specifically of money. And again, like in the context of one acquisition being a $10 million acquisition that you could make a $200,000-$300,000 acquisition fee, boom, right at the acquisition. There needs to be a willingness to invest appropriately in two things that I see. One is the education piece, which to me looks like coaching and mentorship, finding, the best, most aligned with you and your values and personality, et cetera, and track record and all that. The best coach you can. That in my opinion, it should be a single coach that you're paying a fair amount to. They call it kind of high ticket coaching, if you will, was one of the best terms for it. And you're investing with them into them at such a level that you're ensuring their interest in your high level success and their willingness to engage with you in the process that it takes to get there. And there's an aspect of like, they're looking over your shoulder to make sure you're not making big mistakes. They're providing resources and relationships and connections that are going to be key. I've talked about Corey Peterson at length at many, many different points in the show. I signed up for a year coaching mastermind with him in 2018. Mm-hmm. And like, I got everything I needed to go out and start finding deals and making offers and acquiring properties from that one relationship. And so, choosing wisely on that point just can't be understated. And again, like if you have reservations about this, again, just take a look at like, is there a lack of like greater alignment in place for you? Because if you have reservations about this, to me, that's a problem. And I'm just being totally pretty raw here and honest. There has to be a willingness to invest, you know, 12, 15, 20, $30,000 for a year investment with a coach that's going to bring you everything you need. So before I go on, Matthew, anything there?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, did I ever tell you about my first coach? So I guess the first two major investments I made, one was, I was at a job and I was making some good money. I was finally making six figures, but I was leaving at 6 a.m, getting home at 6 p.m. And I got these two little boys and I'm like, man, I'm not a father. I'm a provider, but I'm not a father. And I was like, something's got to change. And so I met some guys and they had a program that they were promoting that I felt like filled in the gaps.
Yep.
It was 16 grand. I went to my wife. She was like, if you really think so,
yeah.
You know? Yeah. And even though we were making six figures, that's still a lot of money for, I mean, it's still over 10% of your income for a year. And so I did that. It got me to my first 4 rental properties and really understanding deeply some strategies, but there was one strategy I wanted to just dig super deep into. Yep. And there was a guy that was sort of affiliated with that program and I started talking with him. And at this point I'd quit my job. So I'm 6 months. Some things went on and we had some debt. I had probably $30,000 of debt at the time. And this guy says, I'll coach you, but it's $3,500 a month. And I was like, but he was doing about 6 figures a month in real estate. And I was like, his name was Tony. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going down burning. So if I'm going down, I might as well go down burning, right? Yeah. And so I spent the money. And interesting, right in line with you, he said, okay, I'm going to tell you one thing. The first 30 days, we're not talking real estate and deals. We're talking about your mindset. No. And we got a very clear vision in the first 30 days, something that I know you are passionate about with the people you work with. Yeah. And then that vision carried me and I made $27,000 in the next 30 days. Nice. I ended up making $150,000 in the next 6 months. Wow. And it changed that began the journey that was the setting me free through real estate, this whole thing. But it would not have been possible had I not burned the boats, made the investments, listened and applied and asked the questions. And so, at 100%, at least for me, that's been my journey as well, is that I had to find good mentors in my life to help me get there.
Yeah. And I would say if you go out and talk to just in the multifamily space, but in the real estate space, any of the big hitters, right? You can just get on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever and find those. Like, they have likely spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on their education and their coaching and just becoming who they are, the intellectual property, if you will.
I'm $250,000. I don't know what you're. I'm in $250,000 of education on business and personal development, 100%. And I think and it's the best money it's the best investment in real estate. It's investment in the real estate in between your ears, right? Yeah. but that's what frees you to go do the investment in the real estate. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and to that point you just made, I'm just going to keep this really brief, but to me, I don't think there's any exaggeration. Like 80% of the work in this industry is between the ears. And if you get that right and you nail it and you give it everything that needs to put that 80% in place in a really, really powerful way, but the 20% is almost details and it becomes kind of effortless, honestly. And the power of the right coach that lines up with you in a powerful way to get you to that 80% in say 6 or 8 months compared to the 2 or 3 years that it might take to kind of stumble into it yourself. They can't quantify how valuable that timeline savings is. And then you kind of can't quantify like all the other implications, the mistake avoidance and just on and on. It's just, so obviously listeners, you can tell Matthew and I we've drank the Kool-Aid of coaching and mentorship and I'm unapologetic about it. And my coaching clients, they get everything I've got. And that's how I show up. And not every coach is going to be that way. In fact, not every coach is going to have high levels of personal accessibility, and that's fine. And maybe that works. And that's another point, is like, not every coach is for everybody. And that's super important to realize. Like, there's no one kind of like weapon or, tool that, or in the sense of coach, that is for everybody, that's going to get everybody where they need to get. So it's your responsibility to be discerning and who you choose and, date around, if you will, for a bit. All of us will give you exploratory sessions and go deep with you on certain aspects of your business with no strings attached, to make sure that it's a good match, because it's got to be a good match for the coach too. And dude, I mean, Matthew, I have really high requirements and standards of who I will coach. And this aspect of being all in is 100% like the biggest one. And if that's not there, like, I'll still help and maybe point in the right direction, and there's no judgment, but like, for me to really engage and give you everything I've got, that's got to be there.
Well, and I think as a coach, you start to realize that, after years of experience, you do have a real expertise for shortcutting people's journeys. They talk about the 10,000 hour concept in Malcolm Gladwell, but you can also adopt some of those hours. You can cut $1,000 hours off of your time. And that means mastery much quicker. And so the value's there. And so I think we as coaches, it's always a challenge to say, what's a fair price to say? But at the end of the day, it's like, and what should I require for my people? But at the end of the day, if someone's not committed, the old saying, we can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So that's something they've got to bring to the table. And if people, it's awesome. I got guys that were broke and now drive Lamborghinis, and so why is that? It's because they were the guys that were willing to drink the water and do what they got to do to make it happen. So.
Yeah. Your coach cannot, nobody can do your work for you in business or anywhere else. Like, you're right, Matthew. It's so important. Like, it's ultimately on you. Right. And like, but another point you really got at a minute ago is like, the 10,000 hour rule. Is it 30,000 or 10,000?
10,000 hours. Yeah. 10,000 hours become
Malcolm Gladwell concept. So when I signed up with Corey Peterson, again, I had been to a multifamily conference. I met Corey there, and that was it. Like, I think I may have started to read a book on the industry, but I was as green could be. And I probably didn't even know at that point. I knew what I knew the word syndication existed, but I probably didn't even understand what it meant. And by the end of working with him for a year, I had everything I needed to go out, and including how to vet and choose a market, how to align yourself with strategic partners, how to develop relationships with brokers, how to underwrite, how to brand myself. All those things were in place. And so that timeline acceleration piece, but also for me, what was really present is like, I'm leveraging everything Corey's ever done, all of his mistakes, all of his successes, his confidence. And that was something that was super important with Corey. Like, that dude is just like on it. He knows himself. He knows he's a badass in this business, and he shows up and knows what he's doing. Right. And so that leveraging that sense of confidence is huge. It's just, and it's hard to quantify that, but it's a huge piece. And so that should be present with your coach as well. And that confidence that I was able to leverage went out and gave us the ability to start making inroads in Columbus, Ohio, which has become an incredible market. We thought it was great back then, but it's exploded since then, and different story. But so that's the coaching mentorship piece. And then the other significant piece that we're going to kind of get into and kind of round out the episode with here is your business, your branding, but specifically your systems and processes, SOPs, and the mechanisms inside of your business that these days in my opinion, need to almost all be automated, or at least have heavy automation factors, and be really progressive in a way that in 2018 weren't even on the radar. But at a fundamental level, you need to have in every part of your business, especially in the investor relations world, whether that's recruiting investors, attracting investors, onboarding investors, bringing them into opportunities, bringing them up to speed on opportunities look like through webinars and offering memorandums. That piece alone needs to be dialed. Like, you need to make sure that that is completely in an investor portal, which we use a third party for that at this point. But everything just needs to be dialed, integrated, and tested, and over again, right? Your communications, your monthly newsletters, your outreach, your what happens when somebody clicks on your landing page and signs up for your investor club? What kind of communications do they get right away? What kind of contact do they get with you right away? You need to be willing to invest, again, whatever it takes, and it's not inexpensive, to bring in a suite of technology tools and resources and put those together and integrate those in such a way that is just, state of the art, and it puts you at a competitive advantage with everybody else that's doing the business, as opposed to being, somehow just not as sophisticated and not having those pieces in place, which to me is a almost fatal competitive disadvantage at this point, especially now in today's technology world. So kind of back to when Matthew and I connected, and like first conversation we had in the first 5 minutes we met, like I had been in the process of bringing in let's say my first six one-on-one coaching clients. And these were guys mostly were starting from square one with their business. So the mindset piece, like the vivid vision, the mission statement, all that stuff, right? The branding, choosing a name, choosing, getting a branding kit done, choosing a logo, all that. And I've since put together a 47-step checklist on everything that's required to get you from square one to essentially closing your first deal. And you guys can reach out to me for that. And we have that on a landing page, right? Active landing page.
Yeah, they can actually go to multifamilyoctane.com. They can actually go get it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So just cut to the chase, multifamilyoctane.com, go download that. And you can kind of see where, like, really what there is to do inside of this business. And so I had been through this process, let's say 5 or 6 times over the previous maybe 10 months with these different guys. And we were all in. They were all in. I was all in. And we were working as hard as we could to put all of that stuff in place and integrate it, in addition to the mindset stuff, in addition to building the relationships that are necessary with brokers and other key people. And it was kind of a beast, right? Like, especially when you're looking for an accelerated timeline. And what I saw was that every time I started this process new with somebody, a new client, that I was essentially starting from square one again and almost reinventing the wheel again, right? Even though I had the outline and the kind of the game plan, we were doing it all over again every time. And I just saw this opportunity for somehow like creating the wheel and then duplicating the wheel in such a way that that took like what was taking, like, honestly, like maybe 4 to 6 months of the startup process at that point, and like getting it down to say 2 months, and maybe 2.5 months. And I didn't know exactly what that looked like, but I had a kind of some conceptual stuff in mind as far as like bringing all the resources together that, building your brand, building your credibility kit, et cetera, that could be automated, some of them. And then, Matthew and I met, and Matthew's got at that point his company Magnetic that builds these exact sorts of systems for people. It basically, I'll let you kind of come up with the term, but like for me, it's like a business management, software suite tool, like tool suite, if you will. That's not very eloquent, but how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's basically a business system that allows for online interactions with people. So websites, lead pages, webinar funnels, all the elements that people see, but more importantly, the back end automations that make that so you don't have to be involved in sending someone an email when they register for something, or you don't have to be involved with staying in touch with someone because your system's automatically doing that work for you. So it's really an automation system to make it easier to run your business profitably without having to be as involved in it.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So, and just to be clear, this episode is 100% not a pitch, right? Like we're going to share kind of high level, real concisely what we've put together and built because we're super excited about it. I think the bigger context and message here, and hopefully takeaway for you is that like whether or not you work with us and adopt our product, like hopefully there may be some like alignment there and resonance for you. And if there is, like, we're all in and we'll give you everything we got. But like the bigger context is like, whether it's, this product or maybe I don't know of a direct competitor that's offering what we're offering, but at the very least, you can certainly go out and tool by tool, underwriting, brand, website building, like you can bring all that together and do it all yourself. And it's, of course, there's individual expenses to each one of those, or you can even hire somebody to do it for you. That's reasonable. What we've been working on and we're super excited about is basically this kind of all-in-one, integrated like startup / management / growth kit, if you will. And I want to be careful. It's not just for starting up. I mean, somebody that has been doing this for 2-3 years at least will get every bit, is probably even more value out of it because they can take what they've already done and apply it into the system and then really rock and roll with it. So Matthew, I'm going to kind of hand this to you for a second and just kind of walk us through, the conceptual aspect of this. And then we'll kind of wrap things up with kind of how it all works together and then kind of get back to like, this is how important it is to be doing something like this at a very, very high level. So yeah, man, take it over.
Yeah. And I've kind of built kind of my thoughts on this conversation with a little bit of a framework. So whether someone, wants to plug in with us or they don't, that they get some value in thinking about their system. And so, like you say, people for the last, dozen years have been taking systems. I did this when I built my business. I took, a little bit of ClickFunnels, a WordPress site, an active campaign, or MailChimp or Constant Contact, and you piecemeal all these things and you pay all these different monthly fees. And it's all over the place. And then there were some features I didn't even have because I didn't know the softwares and tools like how to text people or how to do a web chat and then how to make that effective. So what about this scenario and that scenario? So there's all these things that you hear about that sound really good. And you're like, oh, if I had that in my business, it'd be great. And so I had been building systems for first myself, originally our business, but then later on people that were doing podcasts and had other products that they wanted to promote had asked me to come in and build their systems. And I was still needing to combine a multitude of different systems. And so we were able to identify a product and a suite that would allow us to build our systematic elements all in one place. And so that's when me and Tate started talking, he was like, man, there's kind of this thing. And I see, these guys, they need this, and then they need a website, but then they also need like a lead capture, and then they need something to automatically email people. And so as he talked about this, I was like, oh, you know what? We could build a very specific resource for the syndication world and make it all in one place where they don't have to pay for, a $300 fee here and a $500 fee there, a $200 fee there, $100 fee, $25 fee there. Like we could put that all into one place, make it, and then build a structure so that the speed of implementation could exist within, 45 days to 60 days versus what would normally take 6 months of, beating your head against the wall, trying to figure out, what should I say in this email and what's the next step? And so, but what I'd like to do is actually kind of introduce our overall sort of, what is this thing called a flywheel to us? Yeah. You hear that term. And what
I'm going to take credit for inventing that term. I may not have, but like for me, that's what it is. So go ahead. I just wanted to, awesome. Yeah. I wanted to assert some credit there.
Hey, you're the first person I ever heard call it that. Although I have heard other people call it that. So maybe listen to the podcast. So Yeah, great. And what we mean by flywheel is basically this thing that spins off results, right? It is constantly spinning, and when you plug something into it, it spins it off a result that you want without you having to think about a whole lot, right?
Right.
So what does that entail in the syndication world? Well, I think first of all, when we think about and let me actually pause real quick. I just want to make a quick promise here. I'm gonna deliver some really good information, but we're talking about this, and it's a video, and some of the stuff you may want to have like a visual conception of. And so we've got a gift for you at the end, state of the end, and I'm gonna give you a gift that I think will be highly valuable and support your really getting this in your mind and visually understanding what this all looks like when it's put together. So let's break down though this journey as a syndicator. So in our conversations, me and Tate, looking at what are the challenges, what I see is there's sort of this chicken and egg thing that's going on in syndication. And it was very similar with the people I was coaching in real estate. It's like, well, do I go find a deal first or do I get the money? And if I have the money, then can I get the money? Yeah. Can I get the money if I don't have a deal? But if I get a deal, what do I do if I don't have the money? Yeah. And so that in limbo, so many people in stage where they never take action for months and months and months. And so I think by solving the chicken and egg situation and just saying, look, we're going to make it so that you have the money. We're going to do the work that you need to do so that you have the system to get the money and have the money. So when a deal does come up, you can fund it. Then let's just solve it. Let's just decide we're going to solve the problem of the money first. And so that's what this flywheel is all about. So what does it take to get? Well, essentially, I would break it up into a 4-part process. Okay. So part one is you have people out there in the world and they need to become aware of you. Okay. So maybe you call it lead generation or something. The second thing,
personal branding, huge part of that. Yeah,
exactly. But at the end of the day, so technically personal branding is a little bit part for me in the second part. Okay. Because lead generation is sort of the way that people, I guess personal branding is a little more broad. I guess I would say it sort of encompasses multiple steps of this. In fact, this whole thing really creates a personal brand for you.
For sure.
But step one is I got to go be somewhere where people that could bring money to my deal exist. That online, whether I'm doing that specifically. And I'm going to stay high level real quick and then we'll get into nitty gritty. So you need to generate interest in what you're doing. Then once people are interested in you, then you need to connect with them. So you need a way for them to enter into some sort of database where you can stay connected with them. Then once you have that connection and the database, it needs to be organized in a way that you can then nurture that relationship to continue to build trust and credibility and likability, because that's how all conversions happen. All sales, all investments happen because someone says, hey, this guy's credible, this guy's likable, this guy's trustable.
No, like and trust.
No like and trust. And then the final thing is the actual invitation stage. So I want to invite you to take the step of investing with me in this deal. So those are the 4 steps that you need. You need to have a system for each of those steps. And so what our company that me and Tate have come together with, which is called Syndication Tech, and we playing around with some fun names with the product. So we'll release that soon. But for right now, the product is essentially a systematic way of taking people from lead generation to lead connection to nurture to capital invitation. So Tate, you've been working with a lot of people in the newer stages of this. Tell me a little bit about like what is it that you're finding is most effective for people generating leads out there? What is it, and what's worked for you? What are the things that you're encouraging your coaching students to do?
Yeah, well, I think even before that, you got to look at like what do you have to have in place to even start that, right? Like so you got to have an online presence. What's that look like? It's it's even a basic website or landing page, we'll call it, with a single click, join your investor club that puts people's info into a CRM. What that requires a click magnet or a lead magnet, which is a source of value, a point of value. A PDF, a calculator, a spreadsheet, a video course, a video series, et cetera. There's lots of, very valuable things you can put out there that people are going to come. They're going to click on this. I want to download this. They have to enter their name, their email. That's your CRM. And then, so that's part of the flywheel that Matthew referred to. And then there's the whole social media presence conversation. Again, if this is something you're not willing to do, probably not for you, right? Everything happens these days. Not everything, but a huge, like everybody's in, especially LinkedIn these days right now. Like if you're not there, you're kind of irrelevant. And if you are there, you can make massive, massive impact, and you can grow, 5-figure audience in weeks on LinkedIn if you know what you're doing. And that's part of the personal branding conversation, right? And then there's the whole there's like the building the foundation is no small task. What Matthew and I have addressed is the flywheel component, right? And so that's the landing page, the click magnet, the automated email campaign, the CRM, how it works, and there's this integrated, frictionless aspect of the mechanics here that is just incredibly valuable, we feel. And then our ability to kind of package it up, give it to you in a turnkey usable system for a single price point, and then eliminate the need to go out and source all this stuff yourself is huge in our eyes.
Yeah. And so what that allows you to do, if you are in the lead generation mode, and basically there's 4 ways to generate leads, right? There's ads, there's social reputation, meaning you're posting on social media. Yeah. There's strategic partnerships, or there's networking. Yeah. And so you're going to be doing those things. And so that's actually where our system actually starts to engage with you at that stage. Yep. So the 2 lowest cost options for you to go generate leads are on social and then networking. So for instance, when you're on social, what if you could make a video and then post it to IG Reels, Instagram Reels, LinkedIn video, and TikTok all at the same time? So our system allows you at the lead generation level to make the lead generation even easier, make it easier to post content, right? So we start to interact with your business at that stage. Are there other tools out there to do this? Absolutely. And you can use them. In fact, sometimes if you want to get more advanced, we'd encourage you to step into a little more advanced tool on this lead generation side. But a lot of times, a lot of you just need something to get off the ground and start posting. And so our what we call social syndication tool is going to allow you to be able to create posts and get them out there to the world on your business profiles. Then when it comes to networking, when you're out there networking, how many of you have gone, you meet someone that could potentially be a great investor, you pull your phone up and you plug them into your phone, and then like 3 days later, you're like, I never reached out to that guy, I forgot. Yeah. So what we do is, on that standpoint, we move into the second phase, which Tate talked a little bit about, which is now taking the connections that you're making and putting automation behind the connection to them. So in the networking world, we actually just give you a simple form. So you can fill that out, and then that immediately puts the person in your system and even starts to email them and tries to build that rapport with them automatically. So you don't go 4 or 5 days after an event and never talk to that person. You don't show up at a best ever event, make all these amazing connections, and then lose all these people because you put them in your contacts on your phone. Instead, you put them into your system, and the system starts to build a relationship with those people on an ongoing basis. Yep. So to me, that's where the interaction of the system starts. And then, like Tate talked about, we want to have a credibility website. You want to look like, there's competition out there. There's other options for people to invest in, and they look pretty professional. Some of those are Wells Fargo and Bank of America, which aren't, in my mind, a great place to invest your money, but you can see they've got a professional website. That is competition for you. There's other syndicators that are out there, and they probably have a pretty great website. So you need a website that says, hey, this is who I am. This is how I'm relatable. This is why I'm credible. This is why I'm worthy of your trust. Yeah. And so our websites are built specifically to do exactly that. Provide things like podcast appearances, provide things like testimonials of other people that have worked with you, provide things like just clear understanding of what's your team and what's your philosophy and mission and purpose. And that gives you a place where when people show up at your website, they're going, man, this guy's not messing around. You could be brand spanking new in this business, and you're going to look like you've been in business for 2-3 years because of the level of website quality that we're building for you.
Yeah. Now, especially Matthew, if you're aligned with either a coach or somebody of high net worth in terms of portfolio and that you've integrated into your team inside of your website and your what we call your credibility kit as either an advisory partner or some integration there at partner level, that all of a sudden you can put their parts of their portfolio or all of their portfolio into your website and your presentation, like instant leverage, right?
Yeah.
Instant credibility.
I remember talking to my first real estate people. Like I remember talking to a seller for the first time and being like, I can totally help you out. The reality is I had no clue what I was doing, but what I knew was I had a guy who did
right.
end of a phone call at any given time that I needed to get the next step answer. And the reality is in business and in everything, it's only one next step. There's only one next step. There's not, you just have to figure out what the next step is. And if you can figure out that next step, then you can move them forward. And whether you're doing that leaning on a coach or you're doing that from your own knowledge, it should be the same next step if that's the right next step. And so I love that. I think that's really powerful to have a partnership with someone who can help you accelerate that credibility.
Yeah.
And then what you're going to do is take all that credibility, that likability and trustability, and you're going to make an offer to somebody. And I love what Alex Hormozi says in his book, and he gives somebody else credit for this quote, but I can't remember what the other guy's name was, but he says, make them an offer with something that's so great they would feel silly saying no to it. And so you want to test out, if someone's going to give you their email, they want to feel like they're going to get some tremendous value in return. So what is an offer to them that makes them feel silly not to want to give you their email? And if you can answer that question well, then you will have an offer that converts high and people are willing to leave you their email, maybe their phone number, and you can start to continue to build that trust. So that's the next sort of phase from lead generation to lead connection. I know one of the things, just to speak to it, you really coach people on is how to get on podcasts. And we've got a guy in your group that's really gone, like crazy on this. And so tell me a little, or talk a little bit about kind of your thoughts on can someone who's newer to this game and doesn't have a podcast like you, or, $70 million in assets, like you've built that, can they still go be a guest on podcasts?
Yeah, 100%. But there has to be these things in place that we're talking about, including the network and your team and even the portfolio pieces and like the self-knowledge piece and like your values and what you can bring on the entrepreneurial side. But not only can you, but you should, like that should be part of the first 6 months to a year of focus. You should essentially be on a podcast tour and be doing a minimum of 2 podcast appearances on other people's podcasts per month, in my opinion.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it the way you said that, but actually the guy that we're referring to, it's really interesting because it was almost directly correlated. He had been on a few podcasts and then we got his website done. And I think he's doing a podcast a week or 2.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
killing
a bunch of. Yeah. And once again, it's because he has a credibility piece that looks and feels like a guy that knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And so when he puts his information out there to make a connection and jump on a podcast with someone, he looks like someone who should be talking about those things. And he is, and he's a smart guy and he's got other backgrounds that he translates there and work really well. And so that's, to me, I love that. I love that we can shortcut the journey of someone being able to step into communication with others with credibility, with what we're building here. Yeah. So then we move into that third stage, which is nurturing. Okay. And this is the part that so many businesses fall apart on. And I'll be honest with you, even my own business fall apart on this, because if you don't have automated nurturing, sooner or later people slip through the cracks. And there is time and money that's spent in building your network. And if that time and money goes to waste, at the end of the day, you're losing ROI. That'd be just like a property that you're just not collecting rents on from somebody. It doesn't make sense. You need to be staying in communication with people, and you need to do it in the best way possible. And so our systems are built to make it easy for you to stay in connection with people. We have very strategic ways that we shape our email communications so that 1, they get open. 2, they actually encourage people to stay on the list of the email and want to continue to get the emails. And then 3, they know the next action steps to take in that. And those action steps are kind of the third part, our fourth part here, which is what we call the invitation to capitalize. And so that's going to look a couple of ways. For you, it might be a one-on-one call. And so we have automated systems that, if you're familiar with Calendly, it works like Calendly, but it's integrated with our system. And I feel like it's a little bit more high tech and a little bit, it's more seamless. It doesn't look so cookie cutter as Calendly does. But then also maybe you need to do a webinar. And so we have really awesome automated webinar structures that allow you to update a webinar very easily without rebuilding a whole website and a whole email series over and over again. Every time you do a new property, you can literally just answer 8 to 11 questions and then click a button and you're ready to go with your new webinar. And that to me is not, I haven't seen that very many places in this industry at all. And to me, that makes it where now you can take those leads you generated, you can stay connected with them, you can nurture them, and then you can get them to the place where the invitation can happen. And then we do one other cool thing where after they attend the webinar, we send them a little notice that says, hey, how did you like the webinar? Did you get value out of it? Did you understand? Was it clear? Would you see yourself working with us in the future? Would you see yourself working with us now? Should we schedule a one-on-one call? And then boom, they say yes. And we move you along and we get a call with that. We help you automatically schedule a call with them so that you can now position yourself in a place to be able to do the deal. But there's one more thing that I think Tate is incredibly passionate about, and I know is really valuable. It's not enough to get someone to a deal. You have to make sure that the deal is actually able to be vetted out and is a good deal. And so there's one more thing that we've done that I'm gonna let Tate talk a little bit about as far as the underwriting side of things.
Yeah, perfect, man. All right. Yeah, Matthew, great point. Again, the whole concept here is a comprehensive set of tools, like everything you need in the first, startup phase and then in the ongoing operations phase. Deal analysis is huge, right? We all know going into this business and into starting our own businesses that deal analysis is like, it's sourcing deals, sourcing dollars, right? We've talked a lot about sourcing dollars here, sourcing deals. Like there's capacity inside of our system for the broker relations campaign that you need, the CRM capacity there, the follow-ups there. It's just a whole nother, as they say, aspect of what we are offering and what's super important. And we'll leave it at that right now. We'll probably come back to that in future episodes because broker relations and deal sourcing is massive, right? It's huge. And then, I'll just mention the underwriting component of this tool set is next level. I've been using it for essentially a year and a half at least. It's got AI integration that makes what was very time consuming aspects of underwriting deals, entering your income, your expenses, all the inputs, right, that need to go into your underwriting. It makes that automated so you can upload a financial report, a T12 as they say, and then a rent roll from the property that you're analyzing. Boom, AI takes that, puts it into a very sophisticated but also very understandable, essentially a spreadsheet, Google sheet that you do a few more inputs on, and you can get really close to a really good look at whether that deal is worth continuing to really get granular on from that point forward. It is, I can't understate how huge this has been in the world of Greenlight and how huge it has been to not have a tool like this in terms of like just straight up mistakes that we made in our underwriting in the past. Rent comp analysis, establishing your target rents, which is essentially establishing the net operating income that you can get to, which is directly impacts or directly actually dictates the exit value that you can get to, which determines if it's a good deal or not. That whole aspect of what our underwriting tool offers is, once again, next level, AI based and integrated. And it's just, again, we are going to do a future episode here in the near future with our strategic partner in developing this particular aspect of the platform, and really go into that and talk about high level why it's so important and the consequences of not getting it right, and the consequences of getting it right and uncovering opportunities that maybe other people can't see because they don't have the sophistication in their analysis tool. So again, we will be revisiting that at a much higher level because it really does deserve its own look, if you will. But just to kind of start to round this out, right? Like, kind of back to the high level concept of this is like all of these things you will either do yourself. You'll go out and get Calendly. You'll go find a spreadsheet or an underwriting model from somewhere else. You'll do MailChimp. You'll get a CRM like ActiveCampaign, which is what we use for a long time. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Website builder. You'll get you'll hire a VA or a graphic designer or freelancer to build you that. You got to integrate that. You got to develop your click magnet. You got to develop the content of your automated email sequencing, right? So like all of this is like, none of this is optional in my opinion, Matthew's opinion. Like it's just not. And so you're doing this one way or another. And what we're offering, again, this is, it probably sounds a little pitchy, but it's more just our excitement about what we feel like we've put a lot of heart and soul and, time, effort, energy, resources into putting together for ourselves and for our, my mastermind coaching clients at first, and then for the industry at large. And we're super excited about it. And, whether or not you use this, do it yourself. We want to, at the very least, offer you essentially the high level look at what this really infers. And if you want to go out and do it all yourself, that's great. In fact, you can use the gift that Matthew's about to explain to do that. And this is going to be a downloadable link in the show notes, right, Matthew? Yeah. So perfect. Kind of take us there for a sec, Matthew.
I mean, simple enough. You've got it covered there. Like you guys have heard me talk about these 4 elements that you need to move people through, but it's another thing to kind of see that and understand sort of how that's broken down. So I've built out a visual map of that's really easy to read. It kind of points to every piece of the puzzle so you can see how a flywheel comes together. And then you can go build that yourself if you want, or if you want to reach out to us and schedule some time, we can talk about how we could potentially do that for you. Ideally, we do it much faster and at a cost that's much lower than you would spend breaking it all down in a bunch of different pieces. So at the end of the day, I'd say this, our big deal is you're here to make money being an operator and syndicator of real estate acquisitions in the multifamily or commercial space. So I would say stop running your business without any credibility. Stop wasting time trying to build a fancy website. Stop meeting potential investors and not following up with them. Yep. Stop trying to figure out marketing when you're supposed to be finding deals, and stop using money or your money or other people's money with deals that you haven't fully vetted. Yeah. Stop doing all that. Let us help you do that for you, I think if you join us with that, you can be very happy. And if not, then, hey, hopefully this tool is helpful for you to build this system for yourself. And hopefully you got some other good information for your business to be a little more successful.
Yep. Well said. Well said. So Matthew and I are here for you. You can reach out to us on all the socials. You can find us at syndicationtech.com. And, yep. And then you can find, high level insight and, looking at like the complete set of tools that are available here. And if nothing else, like Matthew said, use that as a reference to go do it yourself, but, find somebody else to build it for you, or we're here to really give it everything we've got to put you in just a really, really great place to launch your business or expand your business from where you are. And yeah, with that, I think let's leave it at that, Matthew. This is going to be an ongoing conversation and kind of an ongoing development. And as we're basically at the launch part of our sequence here, bringing this to market. So we're really excited.
We're really only taking on 5 clients right now. So we're going to take on 5 more. We want to get them up and running, and then we'll look at bringing on more. But if you want that gift, syndication, just like it sounds, SYNDICATION tech, TECH.com/gift. Go grab that, and let's see if we can support you in building your syndication business.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Matthew. Hopefully there's, high level takeaways here and in terms of, business philosophy, but also like a better comprehension of what it takes at a few different levels to do this business. And if you didn't, a lot of you already have tackled all this and know all this. Again, if nothing else, we're here to help, no strings attached at any point, and just contribute as much value as we can. And I'll just leave it at this. Like, that is where you should be too, right? Like in all of this, Matthew talks about the onboarding, by moving people through the sequence of your flywheel, right? Well, we touched a bit on social media and your presence there. That's a huge part of it. Providing valuable content to people. And then once people are in your ecosystem, and again, just adding value. It's the whole personal branding conversation, which is all about value contribution and knowing who you are, knowing what your messaging is, knowing what you bring that's of value, doubling, tripling down on that, niching into that, if you will. And then just going out and crushing it. And again, that aspect of the willingness to do whatever it takes, including investing 5 figures in coaching and in your systems and processes. Like, that's just a reality. And if it's not practically there for you, maybe it's time to go find an investor, right? Like if the will is there, you'll find the resources and you'll find the way to get it done. But if there's just if there's a philosophical lack of willingness to invest that kind of money in both the intellectual coaching mastermind piece, the mentorship piece, and your systems and processes, again, just consider the millions of dollars that you're going to be bringing in of other people's money and the obligation and again, to me, it comes back to like this whole sacred trust. Maybe that's an overstatement, but that's what it is for me. Like, people are investing hundreds of thousands of their life savings, millions of dollars of their life savings with me. That's what it is. I owe it to them to, have the bare minimum standards of, just great, super sharp, cutting edge, up to date technology to support them, to support us, make us better at what we're doing, keep them in the loop, be transparent, bring all your core values to the table for them. And we feel like we've put together something that could be really valuable in helping you do that. And if nothing else, we're offering you here something free that gives you the high level of what we feel like it takes and what you need. So with that, Matthew, thanks, brother. Good stuff.
Thanks, man.
And really enjoyed this. Thank you, listeners. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.